Growth Podcast. Commit to conquer. Lead your life. Leave a legacy. Gather your grit. And let's get after it.
Just a little teaser there for you guys. All right. So thanks for coming, everybody. If you don't already know me, I'm Carsen Stefanelli. Got a little feedback going here. This is Matt. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Matt Webster. Great to be here again, back on the stage and with the Builders Association. And we're gonna start it with a question, a couple questions here actually. And as I look in the audience here, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of smiling faces. Love to see it. But there's one right there, James. James was on the Grit Growth podcast. And so one of the questions we want to ask the group, and we want your feedback. What is grit to you? It can be one word, a couple words. What I don't need is a sentence, because I can't write that fast, and you don't need us up here that long. But I want to kick it off with James, and kind of, James, what do you think of when you think of grit? And thank you for being part of the podcast, by the way. Relentless effort.
That's great. Anybody else? Got another one? Tenacity. Perfect. It's a good one. We'll use that one later. Anybody else? Fortitude, perseverance. Yep. One more time. A little bit louder.
That's something you mix with eggs.
Tenacity?
That's not the... That's
Grit?
That's not the
eggs
one we're
with
talking about.
eggs. Do you realize how much that it costs now? Eggs? What else? This is a gritty group, right? You're in construction. You're in banking. Sir, Barry, how you doing? Overcoming obstacles.
Determination. Heart. Okay. Strength. Drive. Excellent. Risk-taking. Endurance. You guys don't need this presentation. You got it figured out. Okay. That's enough. All right. Okay. One more question now. Stay with us here. When you think about the younger generations, okay, my generation, a lot of us in this room are in my generation. What are we missing when it comes to grit? What are the cliches and connotations you hear about millennials, Generation Z, etc.? Anybody? Okay. Too big of a hurry to what? That's good. That's good. We're going to talk about that. What else? Anybody? Participation trophies. Yep. That will be on the slides. Sorry? Entitled. Yep. That's on the slides too. Attention to detail. So that's a good one then. Or they're lacking that. Oh, they're lacking attention to detail. Okay.
Did I hear instant gratification?
Yep. Instant gratification. Okay. Impatient. Naive. Man, ouch. See? You guys do need the presentation, see? All right, that's what we're here to talk about. Okay, so those are all really good. We've got some of those on the board. These are some that we hear a lot. Everybody agree? Does everybody in the audience feel the same way? Those are applicable. Raise your hand. Silence means yes. Everybody agrees.
Your generation stinks.
My generation stinks. How about this? No. I'm here to offer you a different perspective. I hope that you will leave here today I hope you're here today with an open mind. I hope you leave here today with a little bit different perspective. Maybe next time you're given the opportunity to discuss any of these cliches or dogpile on with someone in a conversation like we like to do, maybe you'll bring some of my ideas. All right. So with that being said, just a little background on me and how we got here, how we got to this stage. So as John mentioned, I left CPPI 2018 to be an owner in a concrete company, concrete trade. As an owner, one of my first tasks was to increase manpower, right? Can anybody relate to that? Who could do more with more people, more competent people, right? Okay, so that was the goal. Along with that, production, revenue, profit that should theoretically come with it. So I was attempting to recruit. The majority of the people I was attempting to recruit were, again, the younger generations, my generation. And I was running into all these roadblocks that we listed on the first list, or the second list, rather, sorry. And wondering, why? Why is this such a problem, right? I'm sure a lot of you, especially in construction, can relate. So I'm struggling through that. Another couple years goes by, 2020, COVID hits. Now all of a sudden, there's a lot less meetings, a lot more time in the office, the home office, just Zoom calls. Had more time to reflect, had more time in my thoughts. I went on a self-development personal development journey, if you want to call it that. One of the things that I realized that I have grit, or at least I like to think that I have grit. So what is it about me that is working that I can't seem to, or entire industries or populations, the general consensus is that these generations don't have that grit. So what is missing? What was the problem? So I started studying with my spare time. I started researching. I got infatuated with the concept of grit and who has it and why, so that maybe I could figure out how to spread it. In the process of that, I tried to figure out how I was going to spread the message. I continued to research. I started to write a book, and through the process of writing the book, I came up with a lot of the processes we're going to talk about here today, the information in the slideshow. And the first of which, so to start, we just needed to define grit. What is grit? Okay, grit, not just what you put in your eggs, but there is a psychological definition. So we're going to get into academia a little bit here. What it really is a positive, non-cognitive trait based on an individual's perseverance of effort combined with passion for a particular long-term goal. So there's a few imperative words I want to focus on right there. Non-cognitive, that means it's a soft skill. That means you're not born with it. It's like integrity. It's like your temperament. Those things can be honed and refined and learned, and you're not stuck with what you have now. You're not stuck with what you're born with. So the other part is long-term. Okay, so one of the researchers that I studied, Angela Duckworth, she kind of condensed the definition, passion and perseverance for long-term goals. That's generally agreed upon in the academic world, as well as some synonyms for grit, some of which you guys listed. And I kind of took a lot of that, and I wanted to put it in a format that I could understand and remember and regurgitate when I'm talking to people. So I like alliteration. I found words that all started with V, so I could remember them. So my definition of grit is this: the valor to seek and embrace your passion, vigilance to build it into your purpose, viability to overcome obstacles, and the vigor to endure.
And so Carsen and I are talking, and if you caught from the bios, we used to work together at CPPI. So you talk about the kind of long-term side of this. We've been friends for a while, stayed in touch, kind of doing lunches. So I give him credit for his valor as we're sitting in one of these lunches to say, I'm writing a book. Like, how many construction, you're hanging out with your construction folks, and you're going, I'm going to write a book about grit. But he had the courage to do that, and I applaud him for it. And we were talking about it, and he was kind of bouncing ideas. We're bouncing ideas off each other. And, it's as you're writing a book, you're saying, I need to get stories. I need to hear from other people and their grit. There's so many great stories out there. And we said, hey, man, let's do a podcast. Let's get in there and figure out other people's grit through podcasts. And we said, why don't we narrow that down to the Gainesville community? Let's get, there's so many great stories within this room right here, within this community, and that's kind of the growth or the birth of the Grit Growth podcast to then go along with what Carsen was writing. So we want to kind of get in and give you some clips that exemplify the 4 virtues of grit. So we have some podcast clips that we're going to get into. And first we're going to talk about valor, and this is Kathy Porter that we interviewed.
And actually, for a long time after I got the book deal, I wouldn't even say it out loud because I was scared that maybe this wasn't real or something will happen and this might get taken away. I still did not see myself as an author at that time, even though I had a signed contract to deliver a book. And I say that I don't always consider myself an author because this is not something that I ever had a desire to do. You know how some people say they always wanted to be a journalist or work in TV since they were little. I never had any aspirations to be an author. But I saw a need in the marketplace, and I filled it. It happened to be in publishing.
Kind of guide us through that. I mean, you talk about kind of everyday people being successful. Obviously, it just didn't happen for you.
I reached out to a couple of people, and again, said, get out of here, and no, and all of those things. But all it takes is one yes. And I got that one yes, and here we are. And so I was willing to wait for the right opportunity with a publisher. It took me 7 years, but it was worth it.
7 years. What you don't hear in that is Kathy had a corner office on the 30-something floor in Jacksonville. She worked for Revlon. And here she is writing a book, and it took her 7 years to get there. So that valor, the courage to say, you know what, I want to do my own thing. I'm going to go out there and do it. We applaud her.
Okay, so next up for vigilance, we have Mr. John Eagle Jr. He's actually in the back. He's our videographer. Everybody say hey to John.
Hey, John.
So he's not just a videographer. He is a director, producer, all-around movie maker. And so if you guys need any videos made, he's your guy. But he's kind of the opposite of Kathy. He always knew that he wanted to make movies, and he just had to start from scratch and didn't know anything really when he started. And you'll hear a little bit in the clip, and you have to listen to the podcast to get everything. But he had to continue to adapt and overcome until he finally reached his destination.
And I knew that doing movies was what I really wanted to do. After a while, it kind of got a little flat for me. And then I kind of stumbled into shooting music videos. And I realized there was a market for that here in the city. And that wasn't my original plan, was to shoot music videos. And gradually I realized, hey, wait, I can make money with this for real. I just got better at it. The editing got better. I started watching more music videos. Time went on, shoot more. I started becoming better at shooting the music videos. And just say 10 years had passed, and I was really one of the guys, kind of sort of solidified, one of the guys you come to get a music video shot. And I ended up being a full-time filmmaker.
That was the grit. Don't look at, John Eagle and say, oh, it must be nice. That guy's got it made. He's making these movies. He's a big wig. He's a big shot, right? Look at what it took to get there.
And so we have Bo Beery. Get that right. And those of you guys know Bo in the community? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and let this video play because you guys know Bo. It's pretty good. We'll talk about it afterwards.
And so I started every day, Monday through Friday, for a year. I would call the administrator for this program. It was at 7 a.m. I knew when she got in there. And when she answered the call, she already knew who it was going to be. But she answered the phone, and I would go, "Good morning, Pam!" Literally every single morning, right? And I'm sure it was annoying at first, right? But then she started looking forward to it, and I knew with that kind of conviction, that personality, that perseverance, she's now talking to professors. The professors are hearing about me, and so eventually everyone's pulling for me.
So what you don't know is Bo, or you might not know, is Bo started out wanting to do personal training at Gainesville Health and Fitness. He then learned that of the real estate market. So he went back for his master's. He had to take the GRE 3 times. It took him a year to get in. As you heard, he called for a year. And he's going, and the viability behind that is he took his skills and said, this is what I'm good at. I'm good with people. And as you heard, he called Pam for a year every morning. He wanted them to root for him. He found a way to make it happen. He willed it into existence.
Okay, and so last but not least, for vigor, we have Mr. Eric Anderson, who couldn't be here with us today. But in this clip, he talks about something that's personal and painful, and he got vulnerable with us to do that, which we appreciate. But what it made him realize is that struggling through these painful times is what made him who he is, and he wouldn't be who he is without it.
And anything that we've done and anything that's had an impact in my life that's created any grit has been through some really difficult season. And a lot of them were private and public. That struggle that you go through, and the only way that you can get through it is by leaning into those people that you really love. And that at my time was my wife and, of course, our family.
Yeah, the struggle is what builds the strength, right? There's no easy button. There's no skipping the suck. You just have to be able to withstand it.
Okay, so that's it. We covered the 4 virtues of grit. We've established those pretty well, I think. Everybody agree? Anybody need to go back over that? Nope.
And if you want to see the real strength behind Eric?
Yeah, that's right.
Casey's right there. Yes, I know. I'll hear about this later.
Yeah. Okay, so that is what it means, but why does it matter? What can it do for you? How do we harness it and apply it? Okay, so real quick, just going back through them. Synonyms. We're going to talk definitions so that we make sure we're all on the same page, speaking the same language. Valor is the courage aspect, facing your fears. It's being vulnerable and uncomfortable.
So we kind of took some stars within the sports industry, and so as 2 dudes up here, we just picked out sports people, right? Because that's all we know. But Billie Jean King, those might remember her within the tennis world, probably one of the best female tennis players. The Battle of the Sexes in 1973, where she took on, I believe it was Bobby Riggs. And so it was just super macho, kind of chauvinist Bobby Riggs, tennis player, and he's like, I'm going to win this, no problem. They put money on the table, and she went in and beat him 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. She had the courage to go in there and represent the female athletes of that era. She also had to overcome then being outed as a queer in 1981 by her secretary. And she didn't run from that. She had the valor to stand up and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm homosexual. And in the 80s, I'm female and I'm an athlete. And I'm going to stand up for this group within this industry and within this society. So a lot of courage shown by Billie Jean King.
Okay, so vigilance, this is the conscientiousness piece. This is your focus and your efficiency, your mindfulness for the task at hand.
And so Kobe Bryant, and you think of Kobe, what you might not realize is he woke up at 5 a.m. before high school to get in extra practice. He would play one-on-one matches to 100. He broke his right hand, so he played with his left. He would not give up, and he would always try to outwork and that vigilance to see things through. He had the focus and mindfulness to realize that if he worked harder, he would succeed.
Okay, so next is viability. This is resourcefulness. This is how you overcome the strife, right? It's leveraging tools, rallying troops, leadership, tapping into your skills and turning them into some production or whatever you're trying to achieve.
So no real introduction in this crowd, right? Tim Tebow. Yeah, exactly. Did he have the best throwing arm or throwing motion? He was not known for that. Hard work, leadership. Would that you think back about that championship team, and you think of like Aaron Hernandez. You think about some of the characters on that team. And if it wasn't for Tim and his ability to rally the troops and his leaderships and the viability that he saw it through, I don't know if the Gators would have been national champions.
Okay, and last is vigor. This is endurance. This is long-term intensity. How do you, it's easy to get excited and be passionate in the beginning of something, but how do you maintain it? Discipline, determination, the long-term aspect.
And so the recently retired Tom Brady, 23 seasons in the NFL. He had 7 Super Bowls, 10 Super Bowl appearances. Do you realize that he started his University of Michigan, when he started there, he was 7th string. He was drafted in the 6th round. He was the 199th pick. But he had a passion and a vigor to play in the NFL for those 23 seasons and be top of the game, considered the GOAT of quarterbacks.
Okay, so hopefully we've convinced you now why it's important. Going back to that psychology research I did, it's proven in studies. It's the strongest indicator of long-term success. And they're not just saying that. That's as opposed to natural talent or luck or
your IQ.
Your IQ. Any other factor you want to consider has been weighed up against grit, and grit has won. And that's everything from sports heroes like we talked about to spelling bee champions in the 6th grade and everything in between. So that, that's just a few of the reasons listed up there. But basically, that's what it's all about. It's about it's the most important factor to get you where you want to. So now we know what it is and why it's important, and what are we going to do about it. So a little bit more academia for you here. There is a concept in humans and psychology. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Basically, it is on a chart. Here's a simplified version visual for you to see. It's the relationship between your confidence and your knowledge, charted on the path to mastery.
So how many of you have started your own business within the Gainesville community? Quite a few of you. Was there a lot of excitement when you got started? What happened, a few months, maybe a year in, kind of got your butt kicked? Kind of said, wait a minute, this is maybe not as easy as I thought it might be? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what this chart's out.
That's what it's all about. And so bringing it full circle back to the list we talked about, what is the younger generations missing? The root cause of all these things that they're missing is this. They want to skip the beginning, right? That'd be great, but it's not reality. It's not life. This is what they're not being told. This is the reality that, unfortunately, they're not aware of. So that process, it's human nature. It's human psychology. Everyone in here has been through it to a certain extent, or at some time in your life, you just probably weren't aware, or it wasn't in terms of a graph on a screen, right? So that's another thing about my generation. We need graphs on screens. We need direction.
What is the path?
What is the path? Lay it out before me. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, well, here it is. Step 1, curiosity phase, okay? There has to be exploration. You have to discover yourself and discover what you like. This is the path of how grit is developed when you're moving through that Dunning-Kruger model that we just talked about. This one's customized for the grit growth experience, okay? So confidence climbs as you are infatuated. You reach a peak of passion, and then you have a realization. It might be, you might realize that, wow, there's a lot more to this than I thought. You might realize that you have a lot more potential than you thought. You might realize you're going to be on stage in front of 180 one day, and you're not ready for that. But anyway, you have this realization, and your confidence plummets. Then you hit acceptance valley. This is where the grit gets built, the struggle. If you can transition from passion to purpose, you're climbing off of that plateau. You reach a breakthrough. Then you're on the path to mastery. This is the repetitions. This is
the 10,000 hours.
Has anybody ever heard of the 10,000 hour rule? That's how many hours they say it takes to master any given thing you're trying to master. That's the enlightenment phase. Then once you pass that, again, there's no definite timeline at the bottom there. That 10,000 hours, 40 hours a week, that's 5 years. Once you get past that, you're an expert. Congratulations, you made it. But what now? What happens next?
Well, I'll pick on, we've been picking on millennials and Gen Zs. I'll pick on Gen X. Climb the ladder, right? Just keep climbing. Corporate ladder, stick with it. You'll get there. Just keep doing it. And you get to the top and you go, I made it, but where did I make it? Is it truly what I'm passionate about? Is it what I love? Does it give me purpose and fulfillment? Maybe not. But can you discover that earlier? Can we figure out ways to figure out where that passion, purpose unite to then accelerate you? And so when you hit mastery, it's truly about loving what you do versus an accomplishment that you've made.
So to that end, I have been working on a real quick, short PDF workbook style paper that you can use to guide you through that process, you or whoever needs to be guided through that process. It could be utilized for a high school graduate. The process is the same for someone who's already established in their career to help them find the passion and the purpose in what they're doing now. But this is, where it comes from. Strife, spite, ambition. These are all triggers that can cause it, but you're not going to really discover it and harness it without some honest self-evaluation. What are you good at? What do you love? What do you care about? What impact do you want to have on the world? What's your legacy? These are kind of next level self-discovery, gritty questions that have a tendency to just, be muddled up in your mind, and they come and go. But until you organize them and understand them, right, or someone teaches you how to do that, you might never do anything with them. They might just continue to float around up there. So what we're trying to achieve in this process is this. It's the cross-section of all these ideas in your mind, outer influences. The cross-section of these things is your purpose. And achieving that purpose is the path to our next topic, which is fulfillment.
Yeah, what creates that happiness as we talk about when you get to mastery level? And are you truly happy at what you're doing? Does it excite you every day? And fulfillment, you looked at the questions before when we talk about gritty, and we're talking to, again, the construction industry here. And what do you love? That's not a typical question on the construction side. And you say, is that a gritty question? And I say, heck yeah, because try answering it. Truly, honestly answer that and think about it. Don't just go, it's what I do. I don't know. Well, get there and really figure out what you love, because that's what creates happiness when it's all said and done.
Yeah, what's the purpose in what you're already doing? You may be 20 years down a career path and not yet realize. So back to psychology, back to academia. The psychologists say that fulfillment requires these 6 F's: faith, family, freedom, fitness, fun, and finance. The sum of those parts can create fulfillment in your life. So on my personal self-discovery, professional development journey, I tried to figure out a way to quantify and track my own fulfillment. So when I found these 6 F's, I liked them, but I wanted it to be shorter. So I came up with the idea of the core 4. I call them conquer quadrants, because I feel like if I can move the needle in these 4 areas, even just a little bit, every day, personal, people, physical, and professional, then that's the path to fully optimizing my life and making it. This is how the F's translate. There's overlap. Just like with any area of your life, it bleeds over into other areas, right? So, and I fell into this trap personally for a long time. You can be thriving professionally, but if your family is suffering, then sustainable is. So with that being said, how do you balance it all, right? What is the optimal time and attention allocation to each Conquer Quadrant? We don't have enough time to talk about that today, so contact us if you'd like to learn more or discover it together.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've just heard the inaugural Grit Growth presentation.
Thank you for listening to the Grit Growth Podcast with hosts Carsen Stefanelli and Matt Webster. We sincerely hope you were inspired by the interview and found at least one useful tool or tactic to implement in your own life. Now, level up by taking immediate action. Apply one lesson learned to your life as soon as possible to make sure it sticks. Post it and tag us to increase accountability. You can join the Grit Growth movement to restore American grit to its former glory by building an unprecedented force of conquerors, both in business and in life, at www.gritgrowth.org and wherever you're active on the socials. Please also drop a rating and review on your podcast app, as it goes a long way in helping the movement gain traction. Now, don't let this inspiration go to waste. Commit to conquer. Lead your life. Leave a legacy. Gather your grit and go get after it.